All right, well, we're at 6:30 now. So I'd like to call to order the December meeting of the East Central Independent School District Board of Trustees. Ms. Barrientos, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Del Brazil.
Present.
Monique Presses. Victor Garza.
Yep.
James Mulkey.
Here.
John Messingo.
Here.
Mr. Bryant, we have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to agenda item 2, the prayer and the pledge. Mr. Toscano, please.
So, Mr. President, I'd like to turn it over to the principal of Legacy Middle School, Ms. Lewis.
Oh, thank you. I'm just gonna, can I pull this off? I'm a little bit taller than most. So thank you, students, for clapping for me. I appreciate that. Good evening, President Bryan, Superintendent Toscano, and Board of Trustees. It's a pleasure to be here tonight and to have the honor to share some of our wonderful students with you. So tonight, saying the pledges will be Valerie Arevalo, and she was our secondary dual language spelling bee winner for the district. And saying our prayer tonight will be our Knights Against Bullying president and our November Superintendent Student of the Month, Savannah Lujan.
Please stand for the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Yo prometo lealtad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación ante Dios indivisible con libertad y justicia para todos. Honra la bandera de Texas. Te juro lealtad a ti, Texas, un estado ante Dios único e indivisible.
Dear Father, I bow my head before you. As we enter the beginning of a new semester, as students finish work, as teachers finish the grading period, this is a time to dream and plan. To dream a dream for our district. Dream of improvement, dream of education, compassion, and protection for our children. And our community, our district, had to begin somewhere. And we not only fulfilled the promise that we had, but exceeded. School is a marvelous place where not only students learn, but are inspired by the absolutely amazing staff. School is where we all belong. We as children have an opportunity to freely grow and learn in this district. Lord, you are with us as we start a new semester. Help us remember the importance of educating our children. Bless our teachers and our administration. Guide us to the future of our district. May we welcome those of you who are shy or unsettled. This district is my second family. The compassion, patience, and love that I have been shown is undeniable. Just as the semester is starting, we start building bridges. It is a lot of work to build a proper bridge. Our heads of the district instruct each of our administrators to build the bridge and work with the teachers and students. Our district has built a sturdy bridge. Through floods, storms, wind, snow, and rain, East Central has stayed sturdy. This bridge all started with a crazy idea. People who had hope. I'm so lucky that adults in my life had hope in me so that I could be with all of you today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. You may be seated. And you should just see her in action when she is rallying the troops for Knights Against Bullying Club. She's up there and everybody's clapping her like, yeah. Very great speakers. So thank you, ladies. And at this time, we would like to showcase some of our talented dance team. We have approximately 70 dancers, so we have a little less than 10% here today. Many of our LMS students go on to become honeybees or drill team members, and they always pay it back to us. They help choreograph dancers or they work with our LMS dancers. So tonight we have, and please come up as I call your name, Isabella Esparza, Sage De La Fuente, Tiara Longs, Jalen Gomez, Natalia Guzman, and Annabelle Sanchez with a short number. I always get so excited to watch them, and there's no wonder why a lot of them end up going on to the high school to become members of their dance team. And so I want to say a special thank you to Coach Ortega and all of the girls. Coach Ortega started the program 11 years ago, and she has brought many, many students. And so thank you so much, Coach Ortega, for being here and working with our students. At this time, if there are any parents of any of our students here, can you please stand and be recognized? I know we saw some parents. Thank you for being here and for supporting our school. And then if we have any LMS staff members, can you please stand and be recognized as well? Thank you. And we really just want to say thank you so much for all of your support and everything you do for our school and really understanding our needs and working to making sure that you meet our needs. We really, really appreciate that. And so we have a token of appreciation for our board.
Thank you, ladies. We appreciate y'all coming tonight and starting our meeting off. We've got a couple of more agenda items that we're going to go through, and then we'll take a break so that those who need to go home and do homework or need to go home and grade homework can do that. Let us get through our awards and recognitions and our trustee oath of office, and then we'll take a short intermission so that y'all can leave. So, item number 3, awards and recognitions. Mr. Toscano, please.
Sir, Mr. President, trustees, we have some really, really exciting recognitions this evening, and so at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Colas.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Toscano, President Bryant, members of the board. Good evening. All of our guests tonight. We're happy to see y'all here with us. I would like to invite Ms. Nina Pugh, who's our Director of Special Education, up. We've got some very outstanding students who are Olympic medal winners, and Ms. Pugh will introduce them.
So we are so excited about tonight. So glad to see some of our parents. Good evening, Mr. President, Mr. Toscano, school board members. Special Olympics is an important opportunity for athletes at East Central to participate and excel in competitions. Currently, East Central athletes have the opportunity to participate in bowling, basketball, and track events, and our program is rapidly growing. The district transports athletes to the meets and competitions with the amazing support of parents, family members, trained coaches, and volunteers. For the last 2.5 years, Mrs. Ull's dedication and hard work has played a crucial role in bringing back Special Olympics to our athletes and community here at East Central. She's amazing. I'm pleased this evening to introduce Mrs. Ull, our District Special Olympics Head of Delegation, who will be helping me recognize our athletes this evening.
So I know that we have here tonight Colby come up. We have Colby Walter. He has participated in area basketball, track, and bowling, and he's got all his medals on. In basketball, he got 3rd place, and then he's run in track. He got 2nd place, and then bowling, he finished in 6th place at area. And then his mom and sister and his team Colby always follow him and always come to the event. So we love them. Y'all come take a picture with him. Alyssa, his sister, is a senior at the high school, and she'll be his unified partner this year to finish out her year. So they'll be able to run track and bowl together and everything. And then Joseph Montez. Come on, Joseph, bring your family and come up here. Joseph has gotten several 3rd places and 2nd places in basketball and track, and then run in Special Olympics at Somerset as well. He's been to everything, and mom and dad are super supportive. Miss Mireya de la Vega, our gold medal winner, our 1st place bowling champion for our district and area. She beat out 16 other bowlers in her lane to bowl her high score. She likes the camera.
All right, very good.
And Miss Gabby Ruiz. Come on up here, Gab. Gabby got 3rd place in bowling and has run track as well. And then we have Miss Miranda Regino too, got 3rd place and 2nd place in bowling, girl. And then we have several that aren't here as well, but that have placed, Michael Gray, 7th place, Colton Lewis, 7th place, Nathan Naranjo got 4th place, and several other numerous that they're all placing and doing really well, and so we're excited to see how we continue to represent our areas for competition.
Thank you, Ms. Pugh and Ms. Uhl. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Holman, who is going to introduce our meets team national champions.
Good evening, Superintendent Toscano, Mr. Bryant, and members of the board. It is with great pleasure and pride that I get to introduce Mr. Jared Lynch and Mr. Ray Pionzik, the FFA advisors and coaches of our meets evaluation team that recently won, I think it's something like our 30th national title for FFA. So we're very proud of them, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Lynch to introduce these students.
Superintendent Toscano, Board President Bryant, and other members of the board, community. I would like to say thank you on behalf of East Central FFA for allowing us to introduce you to the 2018 National Champion Meets Evaluation and Technology Team, Brianna Tully, Candace Landrum, and Cooper Rail. And their coach, Mr. Ray Pionzik. I would also like to say a quick thank you to their parents who supported them through the process. If y'all could please stand very quickly. The team traveled to Indianapolis, Indiana this last October to compete at the 91st National FFA Convention. They went through 3 continuous days of practicing from sunup to midnight in order to be prepared for the contest. Mr. Pionzik worked extensively with these students to be prepared for the contest in areas of meet evaluation, product ID, quality grading, and a lot more. The team earned their spot at Nationals by competing and winning the Texas FFA State Contest last April at Texas A&M University. Those members included Brianna Tully, Candace Landrum, Cooper Rail, and Faith Davenport. Unfortunately, only 3 members are allowed to compete and be scored the national contest, so Faith did not travel with us. Now, when I say they won the contest, I'm being a little bit humbled. They dominated the contest. They won that contest 31 points above the second place team. Now, that says a lot because at the state level, it was won by 2. So that is just a true testament of how well they practiced, how well they were prepared, and how well they were trained by Mr. Pionzik. The top 10 individuals of the contest, as well as the champion team, are awarded a $1,000 prize to use towards college or anything else that they would like to do. All 3 of our students rose to the top of the competition, with Cooper placing 5th high, Candace placing 3rd high, and Brianna placing top high individual in the nation. Now, while at convention, they did put in hours of practice, doing nothing all day but eating and studying, eating and studying, and eating and studying. So I'm sure they were glad when it was all over, said and done, and they knew how well they were doing. We got to experience a lot of things, like watching the President of the United States address the convention. This is the 4th time this has happened in 91 years of the convention. Now, that did get us held back by Secret Service, and we did miss our flights. So thank you, Ms. Burns, Dr. Holman, and Ms. Solarczyk for coming back up to school late at night and finding us plane tickets, finding the money for those plane tickets and a new hotel and another day of the rental car. We do apologize for that. But overall, as an FFA chapter, we are proud to add the 2018 Meets Judging Team to our wall as actually the 23rd national championship for East Central FFA. Thank you.
Congratulations. What he meant was they ate meat and studied and ate meat and studied and ate meat and studied meat. Next, I'd like to invite up Mr. Julio Alonso, who is here with a representative from CPS to give us a check.
Big bucks.
Good evening, Mr. Toscano, Mr. Bryant, board members. Hang on a minute. This check that CPS is about to give us is a wonderful check, but it's quite challenging, and it takes a lot of teamwork to take this to receive this check. It's a lot of moving parts, and it takes a team effort, like here at East Central. Not only in maintenance, but custodian. ROCUS gives us a list of everything going on, so all this has got to take place for this to happen. This year we did something a little bit different. We normally have a 2-hour window. We got a little bolder and a little more aggressive and experimented with a 30-minute, which gave us a little more money on the table to grab. So we took that option, and with the teamwork and everybody in place over 5 years of doing this, it worked out perfectly well. Dawn, who's our secretary, when I'm not available, she would send out the emails. The HVAC team, Nick and David would set everything when I wasn't available, so it worked out well. Keith, Richard, who are my team leaders in the facilities, worked out well. Like I said, it doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of efforts to get the communication out to the principals. The principals at all the levels do a wonderful job of helping and supporting this program, which as you can see is well worth it, because at $56,266, that's at zero cost to the district. All we have to do is reduce the usage during high demand times during the summer, and by doing that, the whole cost of running these power plants, that's how they share this rebate with us. So I just want to thank everybody who has supported this program and made it what it is, because it's truly a team effort. It's all of us working together to make this happen. So I just want to thank everybody who has supported this first.
Hey, we didn't see how much the check was. Yeah, let me see. Oh, okay.
So I'd like to thank the board and Mr. Toscano for the opportunity to present this big check. What it's all about is during the hottest summer days of the summer, during the summertime between, say, 3 o'clock and 5:30 in the afternoon, our residential load goes up significantly. So what we do is we incent our commercial customers who are going home for the end of the day anyways to reduce some of their consumption. So it helps balance out our electric grid. And it's a real community benefit, and I'd like to really thank the East Central team for helping us out, especially Julio and his team, and also Linda. Thank you so much for helping us.
That concludes our awards and recognitions. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, there's some great things going on at East Central, as you've seen this evening. Legacy students presenting tonight, great job. Thank you very much for that. Wonderful young ladies that you brought to us this evening. Special Olympics, wow, it just doesn't get much better than that. And another national championship for our FFA group. Some really good things going on at East Central. So we're gonna take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 7:05 to finish our, we're gonna do the oath of office, yes, thank you very much. At this point, we're going to swear in our newest board member. Ms. Presses, would you come up? And Mrs. Ricketts, would you come up as well? So Monique has brought her wonderful mother this evening to swear her in, and you know that you have to take the oath seriously when your mother does it. All right, Ms. Presses, would you come up and join us on the podium, please?
Got a little bounce on her step.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
All right, now we'll take that 10-minute recess that I promised you, and we'll be back at 7:06. Thank you.
I missed
Thank you for that.
I'd like to first off say that I'm not the type of person that comes and speaks to these things. I don't like to get in, I listen, I make decisions based on what I hear. The first time I came was based on the Guardian Plan, which we spoke about at that time, and y'all delayed it and y'all put surveys out, and I appreciate all that. Today, I got home from work, I'm a teacher, and I got home from work, was picking up my kids, and it wasn't until the neighbor, we're getting ready to have dinner, and the neighbor comes by to drop off a Christmas present to hide away from her child. And she tells me, did you know that the board could potentially be voting on moving dual language students to another school? And I have no idea what it's about. I have no idea where this is coming from. I haven't heard anything. I haven't got any information from it. And that's why I'm here, because my son is in kinder. They urged us to put him in the dual language program. I signed him up. He goes to the same elementary school I went to. I was excited about that. And then now to hear that he might be moving to another school next year, because they're moving all of dual language students there. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I don't know what it is. I have no information on it. Is it mainly Latino students that are gonna be there? I don't know. I don't know the demographics. What I'm concerned about is the lack of communication being sent to parents when such major issues. And all I want, if it's as simple as a flyer, or hold a meeting and just talk about that and explain why you're doing it, because it could be a good thing. I just don't know what it is. So that's my concern. If there is gonna be an action today to vote on it, I strongly urge to delay that vote and send information out as to why it is that you're doing it, what's the reason for it, have you seen it successful in other districts? I don't know. So that is why I'm here again. This is the second board meeting. These are two board meetings more than I ever thought I would attend, especially even speak at. So I urge that there's just more communication between East Central and the parents, especially involved in certain programs that could potentially move my son or my daughter when she comes in to another school. I had no idea what was going on. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak. I wish everyone of you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Our next speaker is Michelle Rodriguez.
I thank you for letting me speak also. I agree with Gustavo. I have 7th grade twins in the dual language program. We've been in it since kinder, and I love the program. We haven't received much communication about it in the past few years. When we were in elementary school, we had annual meetings. It was great. There were mandatory meetings, and so I also agree that I would appreciate more communication on that as well. But I came here to speak on the Guardian Plan. Last week I spoke with my daughter, who's 12 years old, about the plan. She told me how in her Spanish class she knows exactly where she's gonna hide, in a crevice in between 2 cabinets, because that's where she's small enough to fit. Initially, she thought she'd be okay if certain teachers had guns in the classroom, but then it all sank in that if a teacher had a firearm and left to engage with a shooter, who would be there to protect them? She's practiced lockdown since she was 5. She's aware that she's not just playing hide and seek, and I feel that she has valid concerns and that they should be heard. At a soccer game recently, I sat with a grandmother who happens to be a retired East Central teacher, a current substitute who also lives in the district. I asked her if she filled out the survey, and she didn't know what I was talking about. That leads me to believe and feel that there was not enough time for the survey to be completed, and there are too many questions that are not given the opportunity to be asked. Are the smart guns going to be left in the classrooms? What if there's an emergency and a substitute is unaware that there's a gun in the classroom? Who's going to be in the class when my children, when the guardian leaves, you know, to go protect them? They're going to be left alone. And what if the guardian gunfire results in more gunfire, killing more children? Finally, I'd like to call attention to Ms. Barrientos, who is commenting on public Facebook posts defending the plan. She has stated that the district cannot afford more officers and that she would rather have something instead of nothing during the 3-minute wait until police arrive. How can I trust that she is taking my input into consideration when she has strongly expressed her own opinions? I feel that it's a violation of the Texas Association of School Boards social media guidelines. And I would just finally ask that the decision not be rushed. That's it.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker is Julie Elizondo. Ms. Elizondo?
She left.
Okay. All right. Patty Whitlove?
My name is Patty Whitlock. I'm a East Central graduate of class of '88 and a parent of class of '21 and '23. This is my second board meeting in a row. Never did I think I would speak to our community about gun control or anything about the Guardian Plan. I have spoken to members of our school board. I've spoken to our superintendent, and I'm thankful for the time. We received this community report about our school district. And when you read it, you find out that our school district is now 74.4% Hispanic. And our school district has changed, and our demographics have changed. But what concerns me is in this panel, where we have 5 people on it, until today, there was no Hispanic people on it. There were 3 Anglo men and 2 Anglo women. One of the Anglo men has been changed to a Hispanic man. But if our demographics are 74.4% in our school district from this report, shouldn't our panels have more diverse group in it. I'm asking that we have more diversity as our school district, or even closer to mirror our school district on our board is. But if we're gonna have a panel and we're gonna talk about gun control and we're gonna talk about things of controlling and being safety of our children, I think the community needs a better and a more diverse panel.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, I will make a statement at this point. Our panel discussion is not about guns. Our panel discussion is about school safety. So please, if you come to the panel discussion, and we would encourage everybody to be there, come with the mind that it is a discussion about school safety, comprehensive school safety. What does that mean? What does it entail? And what are our options? We've reached out for experts in the field. We're not looking for Hispanic experts or Black experts. We're looking for leaders in the field. So when you come to the panel discussion, please know that that's what it's about. Our next speaker is Rachel Tucker.
Good evening, Superintendent, President of the school board, and board members. This is my first ever board meeting. I come here today to talk about the dual language academies. I'm a kinder teacher, dual language teacher at Harmony. So I wrote it out because I tend to get nervous. So I come today to speak on the consolidation of bilingual education in the dual language academies. Even though I admit there are many positives that will come from this move, which should have been in place already, such as fidelity and respect for the program, its teachers and students from the administration, more direction, more access to resources, both to model teachers and physical teaching materials, more possibilities for new teacher growth in the field of bilingual education. There are many issues which I do have concerns about. I understand that consolidation is occurring because of the state funding hardships public schools are feeling across Texas and nation as a whole. But this solution is jeopardizing the social change that bilingual education programs were initially developed to promote, and seems like a hasty solution for a systemic problem. Many people who have come before us suffered and fought intensely for bilingual education programs for accessible to all who needed it in their neighborhood schools. They fought for inclusion and access to equitable funding and resources. They fought for programs which not only made curriculum more amiable to English learners versus sink or swim programs, and for programs which aid in the smoother acculturation of English language learners into society, all having a deep societal effect in promoting tolerance of diversity, people, language, and culture. This is why I became a bilingual education, why I became a bilingual teacher. I feel that by removing the dual language program from neighborhood schools and by making enrollment lottery-based, the district is removing the ease of access to families who want this path of education for their children, but do not want them to go elsewhere. Additionally, I fear the program will lose participation from those the program was built for, similar as has happened in ECISD. I feel the communication to those who need to know about this change the most was poor, seeing that teachers were not officially told till late October, and parents have yet to be officially spoken to regarding this important change which affects them and their children. I understand a committee was created for the plan, but it had ill representation across elementary schools, seeing that Harmony had no teacher as part of the committee. I'm also concerned for the neighborhood schools, seeing that many are IR and will be devoid not just of diversity, linguistic diversity, but may be deprived of their brightest students due to the opening of the magnet school. How are these neighborhood schools going to survive being taken over by the state? Are English learners going to have access to other programs rather than ESL in the gen ed schools? Are dual language teachers going to be placed as gen ed teachers? Teachers and parents need the respect of an actual two-way discussion on this topic before the vote for this process to be legitimate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tucker. Our next speaker is Rachel Bernal.
Good evening, and I'm one of those dual language parents that just found out about it today. So that's why I'm here, because I was invited to come to share my thoughts after having a conversation with Claudia Garcia this morning. And I also wrote down my thoughts. So I wanted to share my concerns regarding the dual language program and to please, for you guys to please reconsider the move of dual language classrooms to only 2 school campuses. This would close more doors, more opportunities for our children to be in the dual language program. From 10 campuses to 2 will even limit parent involvement. Being an officer of the PTA, I have learned that children do better in school when parents are involved. As a mother, I have seen many parents who visit children for lunch almost every day in the dual language program and walk their children to school, who care about that time with their kids. I respectfully request that more doors open up and more locations be given the opportunity to help educate our children of this district, for number 1, to know the importance of his native language, for number 2, for non-Latinos to have multicultural dimensions at more schools, not at less schools. Number 3, for the administration in schools to show the community that learning about their culture and heritage is important to all the schools. Opening more doors will help our Latino community to know and affirm this is important to all campuses, not just 2 of them. I entered my son in this program at Harmony Elementary to give my child the opportunity to learn Spanish so he can excel academically and also maintain a sense of pride and familiarity with his Latino culture. He does not want to leave his school. He wants to learn Spanish, but if this recommendation is approved, he will have no choice. The choice for transportation on a bus taking him away from his home for longer periods of time for traveling and increased chances of bullying and accidents on the bus are not what I call benefits to this change. Leaving his environment that he knows best, where he knows his peers, most peers, where he is closer to home and where he has built strong relationships will all be taken away. Let's hire more and better multilingual teachers that can provide high quality instruction to help the growth of opening more doors for the dual language program at the schools and not move them out. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Eric Herrera.
His main concern also was a dual language program. Like it's been mentioned that it was very lack of communication. We just found out our daughter is in kinder and it was an adjustment for her to even leave ECDC to go to Harmony. It was such a bigger school, more kids there. So when we found out about it, it was just hard. We were like, she's gonna go through the same thing again. Now she loves it. I was like, so I would hate for her to be taken away from that and then just be kind of shut down into one school for many years and then not be surrounded by other kids that are not in the same program. She gets to interact with English speakers, you know, kids from when she was in ECDC. So personally, I feel that lack of communication on that topic, and maybe if it can get a little bit pushed back and we can get more information on why the change. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And our next speaker is Triana Martinez.
Thank you, Board of Directors, as well as East Central. I'm here on behalf of my son, who I originally started the program for dual language because I wanted to provide him a better future. That being, dual language speakers have the opportunity to efficiently get paid more, as well as have so many more opportunities to their career. And being an English household moving moving a dual language into a smaller society prohibits him from interacting with his friends, as well as I think taking advantages away from what normally a regular student would have. Again, the lack of communication to the dual language program for moving it is something new to me, and this is my first board meeting, and as a parent of a student who I can actually say thrives now on being able to comprehend, understand, as well as speak and pick up, I think it would hinder his future learning, being isolated only to Spanish. And again, I am an English-speaking household. I did this for him and his future. And I think more information should have been given. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, that concludes our public comments this evening. Thank you all. Our next item is a public hearing for Texas Academic Performance Report.
This time I'd like to call Mr. Holbert up to the podium, please.
Good evening, Mr. Bryant, Mr. Toscano, members of the board. It feels like every month I get to give another accountability update for you. And so yesterday we just received the preliminary version of the TAPER report. That's the Texas Academic Performance Report. This was something we were expecting in November, but it just was publicly released today. And it's about a 24-page district report that you'll see summary here, followed by an additional, I think it's 290 pages for the campus. And so we're going to give you a brief summary of some highlights for you. I believe you have previously seen this information, but just to recap, the new accountability system from House Bill 5 requires that we go to like a grading type system for accountability. And so it's a scale where 60 is passing and 70 is in that C range, and they have 3 different domains. So the first domain is about student achievement. The second one is about school progress, how much students are improving from year to year. And the third one looks at subpopulations like race, ethnicity, and special programs like special education. And then it has an overall score there, and the district scored a 70 on that scale. A quick overview of the profile here. I want to call your attention to a couple things. The first thing is that most indicators you're going to see are actually 2 years old. So you're not looking at 2018 data here, you're looking at 2016 data. That's the most recent data that they use on these reports. So you can see our attendance rate is similar to the state. You can see that on most of the measures we're pretty comparable there. One that stands out in particular is the coherent sequence graduates involved in the career and technology. So Dr. Holman spoke to that program earlier. You can see that they were significantly ahead of the state in preparing students for careers. And then the last one, they've updated the standard college and career to include a military readiness component as well. This is our graduation rate, and so it looks at both a 4-year and a 5-year cohort for the last 2 years. So the first row there looks at the 2017 graduates, and you can see that the region tends to lag behind the state. They tend to have less graduates in that 4-year time frame, but East Central is significantly ahead of that. When you go to the prior year, you can see that's a trend that we've had, that we've been ahead of the game. We don't just track that 4-year group though, but the state also tracks a 5-year group, and so at a 5-year rate, when you look at the class of 2016, almost rounds up to 95%. And you can see again that that outstrips the region and the state. The dropout rate, so this shows in 7th and 8th grade, we're very much in line with the region and the state. That was a small increase, so I did a little bit of research into that. 0.4% at 7th and 8th grade represents 7 students. So you can imagine, you know, every student adds up, and we want to keep all of them and make sure that they're all successful. So then you go down to the next row there, and it does the high school one, and you can see that with credit to the hard work of so many people, but in particular, I just want to give a nod to Mr. McKay and the hard work the high school team's doing over there. We do have significantly less dropouts in 9th through 12th grade. You can see we're at 1.2% compared to the region and the state. Looking at students that graduate and then enroll in higher education. Now there's all kind of notes and asterisks on this slide. If they go out of state to a private school, it doesn't count, and there's a variety of other little notes that students aren't factored into the way that TEA accounts for this. But we are sitting at, in 2016, 46.2%, and the state was at almost 52% there. Now, when looking at that slide, I noticed that the state declined significantly, and you can see that ours dropped a little bit, not as rapidly as the state. And so I did a little digging into that and conferred with Dr. Holman, and we believe that part of that is the way that they're accounting for it. Around 2016 is when there was a real uptick in students getting certifications in the high school. So for example, if a student were to graduate and get the typical certifications and things that you might have gone to like a community college to get historically, we're now having a much greater rate of those in the high school. So they don't count in this measure because they already have the certification that they wanted, and they are frequently going out and working in the community. And so it's something we're keeping an eye on, but sometimes you have to understand all the twists and turns behind the data is what I'm proposing. So our accreditation status, I believe you'll hear more about the first rating coming up, but our most recent rating was an A, which they call a superior rating. We are an accredited district, and our accountability rating for the district is that we've met the standard. What questions can I answer for the board?
I have one. And we might have talked about this before, and I just want to open up the dialogue about it. Maybe someone can educate me. But I don't understand. I know we get data late, but I don't understand why we get data from 2015 and 2016 when this is 2018, 2019. And if I'm looking at graduations from 2015 and 2016, I have no idea or snapshot of what's going on in 2018. Then how do I know where we are, and how can we talk about it? What to do, you know, if there's a lapse or if the percentage is down or if it's up. I'd like to be happy for someone for doing a good job, but I don't have anything to look at.
Yeah, so we are a bit of a slave to what they choose to publish there. I can speak to frequently on systems, we're trying to create our own systems to try to be ahead of the game on things, and we try to look and see, hey, who are kids who maybe would be a dropout and would count down the road, and try to go find those students and go give them options and bring them back into the system. Another example, in special education, I know they track some discipline things that frequently lags a couple of years, and Nina's worked together with our data warehouse company. We have a product that we kind of track real time some of that data, and so we share your concerns, and we're trying not to sit pat and just wait for what they tell us, but to try to be as informed as we can be, and trying to create systems where possible to try to not be reactive 2 years later, but to be on the ball.
So when we had graduation just last year, what are those numbers? I mean, can we have a little snapshot?
I'll take
Can
this
you help
one.
me?
So what we're doing this evening is a required review of the state system.
Right.
It has nothing to do with our data. We've been presenting our data throughout the year. And one of our speakers this evening held up the community report. It has the graduation rate in it from this last year.
Okay.
So the board deals with those things on a frequent basis.
Okay.
But tonight, we're having a state-required system review, and this is where the state is. They're 2 years behind. This is why we developed our own community-based accountability system. So
Unreal.
we've pledged to the community recently that we would spend about this much time on the state stuff and about this much time on what's important to our community.
Good, I'm
So
glad.
that's what we're seeing here.
Good.
John's given us a much broader view this evening than he normally does. Normally, we get the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that,
Yeah,
John.
no, I
Is
appreciate
that-
it very much. No, and I think other people think the same thing when they see something that says 2015, 2016. You know what I mean? Like, they're wondering, you know, where are the current, you know, not everybody comes to meetings all the time. And I'll admit, you know, I've been gone for a year, but I just wish, I know that we have a thing in place, but it's a shame that
Yeah.
we're held to those kind of 2-year delays.
We don't have any choice but to have this data presented
Yeah.
to us. We have to
Yeah.
have that.
No, I
So,
know.
okay.
Thank you.
So we've given it more time than we should have. All right? That help?
Yeah, that
Okay.
helps.
Any other questions for John on this? All right. If not, thank you very much, John. We'll move on to our next agenda item, which is a public hearing for the Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas. This is more current data.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So trustees, in your electronic packet, from page 11 to 37, you'll see the entire Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas, i.e. first report for the 2017-28 school year. This is something that we're required to present publicly every year. It is something that we're accountable to the state for every year. It's based on 2016-2017 financial practices. And they're based on 15 financial indicators, as you're familiar with. And of course, you can see our accountability rating for each of those 15 indicators. Some examples of those indicators would be the percentage of our budget that is spent on administrative cost, the accuracy of the district's financial information, which is submitted annually to TEA, as well as any financial vulnerabilities or weaknesses based upon the external auditor's report, which we are also by statute provided to secure and present publicly, which was done last month, if you'll recall. Based on the summary of that accountability report, the district receives a rating, and as was previously presented about our 2-year ago rating, we also for 2017-2018 received a superior rating. In fact, I don't know how many years this is consecutive. Maybe Judy can help, but I know that at least in my time in this role that I've been paying attention to it more closely, we've received another perfect score of 100. So we had absolutely 0 points lost in the entire accountability system for the financial practices over all aspects of finances and schooling for a number of years in a row. In fact, very frequently, we're the only public school district, with the exception of the military-based public schools, that achieves a perfect 100 score in this area. And so as a taxpayer in this community, I greatly appreciate the stewardship that this organization has consistently maintained. We would be happy to answer any questions about the report that you see there in front of you that we haven't already mentioned.
Anyone have any questions? All right. Moving on to superintendent's reports. Item A, personnel report.
Trustees, on just a minute. I believe on page 38, thank you, Ms. Barrientos, the electronic packet, having a little trouble seeing these days. You'll see this month's report, and of course, as you would expect during this time of year, you don't see very much activity in personnel. We're well into the school year, and folks we're fully staffed, and folks are working really hard. And so this is not a common time of the year that we see much staff turnover. So there was very little activity. A couple of teaching positions, and we've since filled those. So if there are any questions about any of those, as is always the case, please let me know, and we'll get you more specific details.
All right, item B, construction update.
This time, we'd like to call Mr. Selby up to the podium to give us a brief construction update. Of course, we've been at this since 2016, Ms. Presses. This is the culmination of years of our construction program, and we're definitely getting to the end. And we're very excited about the fall of 2019 because that's when we're scheduled to be completely done and accessing all of the facilities that have been improved and added to as part of the 2016 bond program. So I've delayed long enough, Mr. Selby. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Awesome.
This is the monthly update to the 2016 bond program. Tradition Elementary School, as you know, was completed and moved in August, just the nick of time. We continue to work on their punch list items and training for various items at the campus. We're making progress, but are getting a little impatient with not making better progress, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Last month, I got snagged in having a month-old photograph, so I went out this morning before the sun came up and took a very recent photo of the Gary Patterson
Better be up to date.
Performing Arts. And wanted to show you that at night it's just as beautiful,
Wow,
if
that
not
is
more
pretty.
so than it is during the day. I thought it was pretty cool. That also was completed, we moved in at literally right before the first event that was held on November 2nd and 3rd. And we've continued to work towards completing the punch list items at that location. They have made some fairly good progress there, but there are a few items that definitely need to continue to be have attention paid to them. We are preparing also for the dedication on January 16th. Salado, we have completed the phase 3. They were scheduled to be completed by Christmas, and they beat that schedule. I have a photograph of one of the classrooms on the left, rooms on the right, and this is Wing A. If you're familiar with Salado, it's it's the oldest wing that they have in the campus. It's right behind the admin building as you come in off the parking lot. And it definitely did not look like this 6 months ago. Very proud of the work that was done and what's been accomplished there. The classrooms are modern classrooms with new windows and new flooring, ceilings, ductwork, lighting, and cabinetry in there. The restrooms certainly are night and day compared to what they were. Whenever you compare a 60-year-old, or actually a 50-year-old bathroom to a modern one, it makes a little difference. We have completed phases 1, 2, and 3. They're moving into phase 4. They'll begin starting on abatement over the holiday in Wing B and and then also once that's completed, they'll start demolition there, and in Wing D there'll be some modifications as well. That'll be continued up through the May timeframe, and then we will move into phase 5 and complete that project in the summer. Harmony Elementary School, also phase 3 is completed. They've moved in. On the left is the collaborative area that they have at all the elementary schools now, and on the right is your new classroom occupied with, doesn't have the students in there. It was at lunchtime, but I thought I'd take a picture of all the desks. Phase 4, they're moving into phase 4. They started demolition in that area. They've made good progress, and they will be completed on that, I suspect, no later than May, certainly possibly even before. We'll finish up all the rest of the projects there over the summer. Con Valley, also phase 3 was completed, and you can see hallway and classroom classrooms. And phase 4, they just completed the abatement project that they had to do in that area. Been doing abatement there at night. And they will begin doing demolition in the phase 4 area actually this week, and will carry on through that through the holidays and begin to do their renovations after that through May. Finish up there in this summer as well. Sinclair Elementary School, also phase 3 is completed, and very nice work there. We are doing abatement at this time at night over at Sinclair, and they should be completed with that hopefully by next week. And they'll move in and start doing their demolition, complete that renovation in phase 4 during the spring, and complete the whole project in the summer. John Glenn, we have started doing work over there. They've done all the abatement that needed to be done on the demolition areas over in the north buildings and the north end of the campus. They've been torn down, and they'll be finishing up taking the foundation out by Christmas time. On the left, you'll have the photograph of one of the restrooms that's being renovated there. They've already done most of the demolition work in there as well. That'll continue. They'll complete demolition over the Christmas holiday. Coming back in January, begin to do the renovations. It's scheduled to be completed in June, I suspect. Their goal is to actually complete it by the end of March, beginning of April. But we'll see if they make it. East Central Development Center, we have met on that. We've started the design development phase, and we'll continue to do that through January. That will move into schematic design, where they take those ideas in the design and translate them into general design concepts or schematic designs. And then based on those, they'll do their construction documents in March. We'll bring a proposal back to you in April and get that all done over the summer as well. And that completes our bond update, and we'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
But do you have any questions for Mr. Selby?
Good job, Mr. Selby.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, item C, upcoming events.
Trustees, if for a moment you could look at your December, January calendars along with me in your miscellaneous packet. As was mentioned earlier by our student, Katie Kempen, on the 21st and 22nd, we have our annual Ag Show. I believe the times that she said were that on Friday it starts at 5 in the afternoon, and then on Saturday, I believe 8 a.m. Lots of kids, lots of community, lots of great project programs, and of course they're resurrecting the art showcase as well. So it's just a fantastic community event, and really an opportunity for kids to showcase the fruits of a lot of hard work. The district will officially be closed and on the holiday break, the Christmas break, from the 24th, and staff will return on the 7th, while at the same time students will then return on the 8th. Also in January, a couple of big events. On the 7th, as you're aware, we're very excited to host a community-wide discussion around school safety. The board has worked tremendously hard in recent years to really address the safety programs that we utilize to ensure staff and student safety across the district. So we're pretty fortunate for the folks that are able to support us in that discussion. We have a broad view of perspectives around all aspects of school safety. Of course, the aspect that includes the potential arming of staff under certain circumstances is also going to be a topic of discussion that evening. We're really excited that Robert Rivard from the Rivard Report has agreed to moderate that discussion. We'll be providing a significant amount of community and staff feedback to Mr. Rivard to generate questions. But in addition to that, we'll have a today's meeting back channel during the event so that community could continue to ask questions and offer feedback, as well as mobile mics, roving mics, for there to be an opportunity for questions to come from the community, as well as our students. We want to hear from our students as well. So big community event, looking forward to that as we continue to learn about what we're doing that is working well for us and what other opportunities may be available to us for consideration. On the 16th of January, we're also dedicating the Gary Patterson Center for the Performing Arts. We've been utilizing that facility, and it's been a fantastic venue for all of our Christmas season concerts. We've been well attended. I believe we almost had a full house for the Heritage concert, over 800 folks in the audience. I believe it sits 960 or 70 to be at capacity, but it was just fantastic. The design is amazing. The acoustics are unlike any cafeteria we've ever showcased our students in. But we're also really excited to recognize a couple of families at that event, not only the Patterson family, but we've got some family members who lost, some East Central families who have lost family members who died in the line of service. One who was a fireman in the city of San Antonio who died in service, and one who was a soldier. And so we have decided, the board has decided to dedicate that facility to the community in honor of those who are from this community, either graduates or citizens of the community who lost their lives in service, that we will forever be able to recognize them in that venue. So it's just a really special facility for us for a lot of reasons, and it's going to be a really fantastic community event. And then lastly, on the 17th of January is our next regularly scheduled board meeting at 6:30. In addition to the calendar, trustees, you have a yellow folder that I want to point to for just a moment. It's got a lot of information for you that we're going to be sharing with the community tomorrow. Just wanted you to have an opportunity to see it first, and then we'll be sharing with the media as well. And that's a summary of the community survey that went out about the aspect of school safety that includes a discussion around arming staff. What you'll see is that there were a little over 1,300 responses. Many of the comments that you see there kind of help us delineate to the degree possible which of those came from parents and staff and even students as they reference that in their feedback. We had about 900 comments or so, and they're just separated for you by those that agreed and why, those that disagreed and why, and those that are still neutral and why. And so it's really good information for you. You'll also see a one-page document there that summarizes what individual campus staff had to say about that topic, and it's broke out by campus. Been able to have faculty meetings in the last few weeks at every campus to discuss many of the issues that we're discussing tonight, including this particular issue around a guardian program. And so I still have to visit with Sinclair's faculty tomorrow and the high schools on Friday, so the surveys aren't complete of staff, but we'll add those to your file as well. And so I just wanted you to have all that information tonight. And again, we'll be publishing this information for the community tomorrow, and as well as the media, who has been kind of monitoring this process with us in the community. That's all I have around the event. The only other thing I was going to point out, which has been pointed out a couple of times tonight, is the hard work that's gone on over the last year and a half to ensure that our accountability reporting is transparent for the community, and that it's not relying on the state system exclusively. And so we're really excited to be able to have mailed every homeowner, every address in the district one of these reports. It's partially complete, right? It's a process. The committee continued to work this fall, and they've built out 4 additional accountability pillars. And so going forward, as the board has envisioned, is we'll be able to report publicly to the board and to the community on an ongoing basis the progress that we're making in all aspects of schooling and ensure that everything that we're doing is really aligned to the hopes and dreams and the expectations that the community has for its children through our school system. So we're really excited about the possibilities here. We're blazing a trail. We're one of the only districts in the area and among only 42 in the state that are doing this kind of work. And so really excited about our ability to enrich the kind of communication and interaction that we'll have with the East Central community going forward.
All right, moving into our, the first portion of our action agenda. Item A is reorganization of the Board of Trustee officers as required by law. After elections, we're required to have the opportunity to reorganize the board. At this point, does anyone have any?
I'd like to make a motion that we leave the board, the organization of the board remains the same for another term.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Mulkey to leave the officers as currently designated. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Garza. Any comments, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item B, approve resolution to consider designation as District of Innovation. Mr. Toscano, please.
Sir, Mr. President, in an effort to continue to execute our mission to improve the quality of the experiences and education system that we're offering for the community, this is another opportunity that we've been looking at the last couple of years, and we think we're ready to take the next step in research and design around this option for being designated by the Texas Education Agency as a District of Innovation. In your packet is a one-page, actually a couple of documents, and Ms. Hertz is going to give us all a little bit more details about what this entails. But there's a one-page document that talks about the process for becoming a District of Innovation. It's a flow chart. We'll be kind of pointing to that document here in a moment, as well as a front and back. It's kind of hard to read for me, for sure, so I know it is probably for the rest of you. 7 slides, compressed. Well, what that means is that my vision is not quite what it once was.
He was talking about me.
And I'm being empathetic with everybody else up here. Not being critical, but rather empathetic, that we may all need some assistance from time to time. So there's also a slide deck that kind of talks about the process. So we're going to lay the process out for you all. And there's some items on the agenda that are part of that process this evening. But I just wanted you to have some points of reference in case. I really want you guys to understand all of the steps. So essentially, the bottom line here is that in the 84th session in 2015, there were some provisions laid out by TEA that afforded districts the opportunity to take advantage of some flexibility that public charter schools have at their disposal, that public traditional ISDs could take advantage of through a very strict process. And so in the past, it didn't really seem to be something that appealed to us because of what was available, but now there seems to be several things that are options that we may be able to capitalize on. So at this time, I'd like for Ms. Hertz to give you a little bit more detail. And you'll see a resolution on page 43, which is what we're going to refer to in a moment as well, on in your electronic packet. Sorry.
Sorry, this is kind of in a weird position here. Okay, good evening, Mr. Toscano, Mr. Bryant, members of the board. So I'm just going to kind of describe what the process is that we have to follow in order to pursue this. First of all, to be eligible even to consider this, we do have to have met acceptable performance on the most recent state accountability, which Mr. Holbert spoke about that earlier, and we did meet acceptable performance, so we were eligible. And then the process has to begin either with the Board of Trustees passing a resolution, which is this current item on the agenda, or have a signed petition from the majority of the members of our DEIC. Once the resolution has been approved, then basically it's giving us permission to consider it, or it's a resolution that we will consider it, and then after that, either immediately following, which is what we're going to do tonight, or at least within 30 days, we have to have a public hearing to consider developing an innovation plan. Then, after the public hearing, either immediately or within 30 days of that public hearing, then the board must decide whether they want to pursue developing an innovation plan that would be submitted to the state or decline. So those 3 items are the things that we are looking at tonight. So, and they have to go in a specific order. So you would potentially approve the resolution, and then we would hold the public hearing, and then the board would decide if they wanted to either decline pursuing this, or if they would want to move forward, and we would have to appoint a committee and then move from there. So that's the initial part of the process. Then, if you do choose to approve tonight for us to proceed, then we would put together a committee that would create this innovation plan. And the innovation plan provides for a comprehensive educational program for the district, and it may include innovative curriculum, instructional methods, community participation, campus governments, parental involvement. It may include modifications to the school day or year, district budget and program funding, accountability and assessment measures that exceed the requirements of the state and federal law, other innovations prescribed by the Board of Trustees, and also identify requirements that are in the code that might inhibit the goals of the plan, and then decide what we would want to be exempted from. So that right there that I just showed you, that's the wording within the law of the types of things that a local innovation plan could address. And so if you do approve tonight for us to proceed forward, then that would be our next step, would be to put a committee together and develop this local innovation plan. Once it's complete, then it has to be posted on the district website for at least 30 days so that we can get input from the community, parents can view it, other community members can view it, staff can view it. And then we also, during that time, have to notify the commissioner that we are intending to adopt a plan. The EIC has to hold a public meeting and approve the final version with a majority vote. And then after all of that, then the plan would come back to the Board of Trustees for your approval. So you're not approving that all you're approving tonight is that we pursue this. And so we're hoping, if we do decide to move forward with this, based on all of that timeline of everything that has to be done, then we're hoping that in March is when we would bring the plan back to you for approval. And then after that, we notify the commissioner that it has been adopted. I do want to point out that currently 802 districts in the state are districts of innovation. So this is something that's been around 2 or 3 years. Quite a few of our neighbors, obviously, and quite a few people across the state have already followed this process and have innovation plans in place. So there are some things that we are not allowed to exempt ourselves from. We do have to have district governance. We do have to follow the state curriculum. We can't abandon the TEKS. We have to follow that. We have to follow the state assessment system. We have to be part of the state accountability system. We have to, our school finance, we follow the state rules on that. If there are federal requirements, we can't exempt ourselves from that. And we can't exempt ourselves from things in state law that are outside of the education code. So there are some limits on what we can put in our plan. But what we can do, and you do actually have in your packet a list of potential exemptions that we could take. It says District of Innovation exemptions. So there's a list of some potential ones. But some of the ones we have discussed as possibilities so far, and some that have been pretty common ones in those other 802 districts that have done this. One thing that we have discussed as a possibility to look at is educator certification. Specifically, what we have talked about is within career and tech programs, in order to get people that are coming from industry but may not necessarily have all of their teacher certification yet, it would give us the ability to go ahead and hire some people with the work experience, not necessarily their teacher certification. So that's one thing we've talked about. Some possibilities on teacher contracts. Specifically, we had discussed maybe some looking at probationary contracts where we could extend those a little longer, and maybe give teachers a little more of an opportunity and principals a little more of an opportunity to extend it possibly another year, to see how a teacher is performing before having to go to a term contract. So we did look at that as a possibility. First and last day of school, that is an extremely popular one across the state. Currently, we can't start the school year until the 4th Monday of August, but you may have noticed last year there were several districts around town that started a little bit earlier and ended a little earlier than us. That is because they're a district of innovation, so that is one thing that we have looked at. Class size waivers is something that we have to do every single year, and this would give us a little more flexibility with that. And then also some of the rules and things we have to follow with purchasing and contract requirements, we would like to look into that. Now, that's not necessarily the only things that we would look at, and that's not necessarily the things that we would even bring back to you for approval. We just wanted to kind of give you an idea of some of the things that we have discussed at this point. So that's the process that we would have to follow. It'll take, like I said, until about March. The reason we're shooting for March is because if, in fact, we do end up doing the school start and end date as part of it, that affects, obviously, the school calendar, and we don't want to be going much past March on coming up with next year's school calendar. So that's part of why we're shooting for that particular timeline. Any questions on kind of the process we have to follow to even have permission to start looking at this?
Any questions? I have a question. Once the process has gone through the stage where the board adopts it, do we still have the opportunities after that to consider different innovative practices? So let's say we only decide at the initial that we want to, the initial part of it, that we want to deal with some teacher certifications and maybe school start day. And then 6, 8 months later, a year later, we decide that we want to move into more innovative practices. Are we able to extend that?
Yes. First of all, the plan would be good for 5 years.
Okay.
And so, but during that 5 years, you can make amendments to
Okay.
it.
All right. Thank you.
Welcome.
Anyone else?
Trustees, the first step in the process that Ms. Hertz just laid out is to pass a resolution, which is essentially saying that the board is willing to pursue the steps required to consider that designation. So this time I recommend board approval of the resolution to consider designation as a district of innovation.
I have a recommendation from the superintendent to approve a resolution to consider designation as a district of innovation. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Garza. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Presses. Is that right? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Brazil. Any questions? Any comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, public hearing to consider development of a local innovation plan for designation as a district of innovation.
So again, as Ms. Hertz kind of spelled out, trustees, now we've got to jump to a public hearing, which is the required before the board could consider the assembling of the committee, which would then do the research, put together some possible plans, vet those through the District Education Improvement Council, and then bring those back to the board for consideration in March. And so this public hearing is the next statutory requirement in the process.
All right. Does anyone wish to speak to the District of Innovation process? All right. And we will move on to agenda item 11, action agenda B. Item A, approval to pursue designation of the district as a district of innovation and appointment of committee to develop the local innovation plan.
So just to point out, the state's intention here is to create opportunities for more local control. What the board now is going to consider is the forming of a committee, which will, again, research the options available, submit those proposals to the district, both to the public. They'll be publicly put out for feedback for 30 days. Those recommendations will be amended based on public feedback and then taken to the District Education Improvement Council for some additional vetting and feedback. And then at that point, the plan would be sent to the commissioner, who would then authorize the plan for consideration of the Board of Trustees. And so at that point, which we would anticipate that timeline being about in March, we would bring back to the board a final recommendation for the board's consideration. And so again, at this time, what I'm recommending is board approval to pursue the designation as a district of innovation and appoint a committee to develop the local innovation plan.
We have a recommendation from the superintendent to pursue designation and appoint a committee to develop a local innovation plan. Chair will entertain a motion.
So move.
Have a motion by Mr. Garza. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Massengale. Any questions, comments? Not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Item B, elementary school grade configurations.
Trustees, this item is coming to you for your consideration. And it's a culmination of work that the board did leading into the 2016 bond program, which actually prior to that, for many years, the district had aspirations of eliminating transitions within our system. As was mentioned earlier, transitions are really tough for kids and families, and historically in our system, we had evolved to, out of necessity and enrollment growth, a system that had pre-K separate from kinder to third grade. And so until just prior to 2016, the district only had pre-kindergarten at ECDC. We had since expanded that to Pecan Valley and John Glenn at the time. The intention that we know we always had was through the early childhood centers that were added to all of our elementary schools to be able to offer pre-K to all of our community schools and to families regardless of where they reside in our very large school district. We also had aspirations of eliminating that third to fourth grade transition and ensuring that to the extent possible, families could enter into their elementary school as pre-kindergartners and stay there through fifth grade until they were ready for junior high without any of those harmful transitions. So last year, the board, with community input, reorganized our school boundaries, which allowed us to kind of set up for this. It also allowed us to begin to execute the plan that was aligned with the demographer's projections for residential development and enrollment growth. which allows us to make sure that we're efficiently utilizing the facilities that we have. Making sure that as our community continues to grow, that we don't have imbalance of enrollment that would significantly impact the ability to efficiently use one building versus another. It's the right thing to do to ensure that we're maximizing the resource that the community has invested in. And so at this time, you know, we were able to go into this year with a pre-K-5 arrangement at Tradition and a pre-K-5 arrangement at Oak Crest. We've gotten really positive feedback from staff and families about that arrangement. And it is a transition for our staff and all of us, our families included. But we're really excited about the possibilities into the future of really eliminating those tough transitions. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about that at this time.
Questions? I think you've been keeping us up to speed on that.
So trustees, at this time, I recommend board approval to transition Harmony Elementary School, Highland Forest Elementary, Pecan Valley Elementary, Salado Elementary, formerly intermediate, and Sinclair Elementary, to a pre-K-5 grade configuration for the 2019-2020 school year. So launching in the fall of next school year.
Have a recommendation from the superintendent to complete the transition across the district to pre-K to 5 grade configurations. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Massengale. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Brazil. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, item C, dual language academies.
So trustees, really to a degree, all three of these items, to include the one you just voted on, are somewhat interrelated. I'd like to, before I move into that agenda item, call your attention to page 47 in your electronic packet. Those are the enrollment projections and models that we ran to consider the boundaries last year, as well as to consider the impact of a pre-K to 5 school configuration across our elementary grade levels. And so what I want to point out is, if you look at the very bottom of that very busy spreadsheet, they're color coded. That bottom 3 rows it looks purple to me. That is, the top row is identifying the capacity of each of those elementary schools. So for example, you'll see that the capacity of Harmony is 817 students. You'll see that after the reconfiguration to pre-K-5, that they're going to have an estimated enrollment next year of 698, which leaves 119 seats. Based on demographer projections, which you guys are aware as you commissioned an updated study this fall, that looks like it'll take us well out to the next 5 to 10 years, depending on any unforeseen developments. So the same thing, as you move across that row, you can see the capacity of each of the schools and the anticipated enrollment next year, which you can see along the anticipated enrollment row, as well as the room for growth row, that we're really balancing out the use of all of those facilities, with 2 exceptions. It's going to result in Tradition having more than 300 available seats. And the reason for that is because our demographer said very clearly that the most residential development in our community is in the north sector. And so while there are residential developments in other areas of our district, those are the most prolific. And so we're going to have to accommodate more student enrollment growth at Tradition in the north sector into the next decade than we will at any other campus. But that being said, again, you'll see that the demographer projections, which if you'll recall, suggested that most of the other elementary schools in our district are relatively built out, that there is room for growth, but that growth would not be rapid growth due to the landlocked nature of most of our other elementary schools. If you move down to Salado would end up with 298 available seats next year. And so the next agenda item kind of speaks a little bit to that as an opportunity. So the next agenda item is talking about the dual language academies. And, you know, we've been talking about this for a while, trustees, and what we know is that the dual language program is amazing. It's amazing for children. My children were in the dual language program as well. But it's also extremely appealing. And the history, as you know, in our district is that we started with one elementary school. And it was only an elementary school program for many years after the inception of the program. But when we started our dual language program in East Central ISD some 18 years ago, we were one of the only dual language schools in one of the only dual language districts in the city, much less the state. And so we had the benefit of being able to recruit and keep the pick of the litter in terms of staff. And in recent years, that's been a challenge because dual language programs are offered in every single district in the city of San Antonio, to include the surrounding areas. Our neighbors in Lavergne and Floresville have dual language program as well. So you see dual language programs as the norm rather than the exception. And so in the last 7 years, roughly, we've tried to mitigate the staffing challenges, and we used two major tactics. The first of which was to partner with an organization that allowed us to go to Spain and recruit master teachers from Europe. And while that's been fantastic in bridging the gap, there's a limitation, and that limitation is that their work visa only lasts 3 years. And so it makes it very difficult for us to have continuity in a very specialized program, and we've struggled through that. The other tactic that we used was to overstaff. So we allocated for the last 4 years consistently anywhere from 4 to 6 teacher units above and beyond what our student enrollment necessitated. And even with all of those efforts, we've never been overstaffed, because what we find is our dual language, the supply and demand of staff is upside down, and we lose staff quite often to their neighborhood community school, so they don't have to travel across town any longer after they have a couple of years of experience, or they have opportunities to move into leadership positions, either in our district or in other districts, because they're where teachers are highly sought after in a bilingual program. Leaders, instructional leaders with bilingual expertise are even more sought after. And so staffing continuity and staffing has been a tremendous challenge. We've also heard, as was mentioned earlier this morning, that our dual language staff has had a call for curriculum and instruction resources that enrich their ability to deliver a bilingual curriculum, as those needs are slightly different than a monolingual curriculum. And they've also called for real-time instructional support to provide the training and the support that they need to ensure an optimal program can continue to be delivered. The district's goal always was to expand those programs and ensure that, like pre-K, those programs were available in every community school. But the conditions that I've presented, and in addition to that, our financial challenges with funding formulas being the way that they are, what we also have experienced, as we know, with tightening budgets, is that we have to look at all of our staff, which make up 80% of our funding dollars, 80% of our operating budget. We have to look at our staffing holistically across the district. And when you look at specialized programs like advanced placement at the high school, dual credit, gifted and talented, and dual language, you find that you're never going to fill those sections in the same manner that you fill traditional sections, because they're very specialized programs. And so the student-teacher ratio is always, there's less students per teacher in those programs than there are in any of our other programs. And so when you look at it holistically, you're aware that during our budget workshop a couple of years ago, we identified that at the time, by offering the program at every elementary school and our junior highs and our high school, which we're going to continue to offer at both junior highs and the high school, we were almost $500,000 overstaffed. And so given all of those variables, we realized a couple of years ago that the model's unsustainable. And so, as a result, at your direction, we commissioned a task force, which Ms. Garcia can speak to all of what I'm speaking to, because we want to share a presentation that's intended for parents in the community through the spring. That task force was charged with evaluating what we currently have in place, the challenges that we're trying to overcome, and the models that exist out there that in many ways assimilate the model that we created initially, that we were able to consistently deliver on. And they were to come back with some recommendations. And what we're bringing to you tonight is a recommendation to consolidate our pre-K-5 programs into an East and West magnet program. So we know that prior to the pre-K-5 arrangement, every one of our children, regardless of program, attended either 4th and 5th grade at Oak Crest or either 4th and 5th grade at Salado. And so we have boundaries that would feed all of our students to one of those two campuses. And so where dual language is concerned, if you were to approve this tonight, any pre-K to 5 dual language student in our system would be served in the dual language programs at either of those campuses. Door-to-door transportation would be provided, and dual language programs are not the only programs at those campuses. By nature, a dual language program is a 50-50 split between non-native speakers and native speakers. And so they're very diverse by design. But in addition to that, we do know that all of our children and staff flourish when it's a very multicultural school setting. And so at both of those campuses, you'll have non-dual language sections as well. And so at Oak Crest, for example, currently there's a pre-K through 3 boundary and a different boundary if they're going to attend 4th and 5th grade at Oak Crest. And so this recommendation would mean that pre-K through the current pre-K through 3 boundary would be extended to pre-K 5, and you would see some of the current students attending Oak Crest in 4th and 5th grade being redistributed to the now elementary schools that have gained 4th and 5th grade. So they would reduce enrollment of 4th and 5th grade students, and they would add some enrollment in addition to their current dual language population of students, some additional dual language students. So you would see a pretty nice distribution of dual language students in the dual language program and students in the non-dual language program at Oak Crest. The result of which would, as you saw in the previous spreadsheet, an enrollment that is very similar to the enrollment, total student enrollment numbers at Oak Crest. So the facility would be efficiently utilized, and there would be room for expansion or growth. And after the painful transition, there would be a realization that students would be able to attend pre-K through 5th grade in one school. Anytime we transition in these ways, there is going to be some unfortunate transitions that are not optimal, as was pointed out earlier. So this particular recommendation is based on the task force recommendation to create a West and East magnet. So we would be not consolidating to 2 campuses district-wide, because we also have 2 junior highs and the high school, but we would be reducing the number of elementary campuses that offer dual language, for all the reasons that I mentioned prior. So at this time, I'd like for our coordinator of bilingual and ESL programs, Dr. Claudia Garcia, to come to the podium. If you were to approve this tonight, trustees, we have designed, and you'll have in your packet, actually behind the taper report, you'll have a couple of flyers, of one of which we're prepared to send out to the community should this be approved this evening, that offers parent information nights at every single elementary school in the district through the spring, as well as would require the task force to reconvene with input from the community and staff to design what that, or reimagine, if you will, what the pre-K through 5 dual language model is going to look like going forward, to fill in some gaps that maybe we've developed in recent years. So that is on the blue in English and Spanish handout for your consideration as well. And what I'd like for Ms. Garcia to do is just give a run-through of the draft of the information that we intend to communicate at parent information meetings.
Good evening, Board President, Mr. Toscano, and trustees and community members. So what I'm going to present to you are just some basic facts of the process and what we've gone through to gather our information. We talk a little bit about why dual language education, just with the premise of why we have this program. And so our goal here is, again, to grow bilingual, bicultural, and biliterate students. And so we want to make sure that those goals, that those goals are still in place. So dual language education also will continue to prepare our students to be academically successful, as well as to develop as leaders in a growing, diverse community. And I heard the word diverse over and over again today, so that is still a focus and a goal. And to be able to communicate in multiple languages, and we know that that's a key to success, and that grows our students' social cultural competence. So the revitalization of the program, a lot of people were asking, well, what does this mean, and what does that signify for our program altogether? And so the goal of the revitalization is really to provide ongoing planning, self-reflection of where a program is at, and to also improve the dual language program as new research becomes available. And so we want to make sure that that is always at the forefront. And so some of the things that Mr. Toscano already mentioned, just some considerations as how we can best leverage our resources, is basically looking, for example, at our human resources, so that this will create well-balanced classrooms with either not too small or not too large numbers of students. And so having a dual language program that's centralized at 2 campuses will allow the district to more easily provide these balanced classrooms where there's no overcrowdedness. This also helps to not have to split or collapse classes, and also to reduce the amount of waivers that sometimes we need to get for teachers that may have big numbers. So it really helps, it's best practice to have well-balanced classrooms. The curricular resources, so we want to merge and leverage all curricular resources throughout the district, so all of our teachers and students will have equal access to what they need on site, and this will alleviate any constraints that are limited, sometimes with funding, that we will have all of those resources available for them. And then also looking at strategic professional development. And this is also very important because we always want to make sure that we are on top of our research, if there's any changes or recommendations with dual language program models. This is something that both campuses, again, will be receiving. Teachers will continue to receive specialized professional development to assure that the guiding principles of dual language education are understood and implemented with fidelity. And then these guiding principles include things such as we'll be looking at program structure, curriculum, instruction, assessment and accountability, staff quality, professional development, family and community, and support and resources, which will be followed up with professional development throughout the year. And so then the question came of why 2 campuses? And so we know how much our program has grown. So the current total number of participants in the dual language program K through 12 is 1,281, where we originally, like Mr. Toscano mentioned, it used to be just a one class at one campus per grade level. So we also wanted to make sure that we had 2 campuses that were accessible to both parts of the district. And so this would, again, have access for all kids, and that it's equitable. So one of the things that I really wanted for everybody to be knowledgeable about is what was the process for making the decisions that we've made so far. And so part of that was, again, creating a bilingual task force. This was probably about 24 to 26 individuals that came. We had dual language teachers that happened to be also monolingual teachers, or parents of children in the program that represented both dual language and, English learners and non-English learners. Speakers, I'm sorry, on the task force. We had somebody from the university that's also an expert in the area give us feedback. We had people from transportation department. We had a lot of people represented, and various teachers from, if not all, most of the campuses. And so then the other thing that we did was we met 3 times beginning in the summer and through this fall, where the participants had the opportunity to raise a lot of questions and offer feedback. And then every time that we completed a meeting, we made sure that we took some notes and then we reported them back to advisory council. And so the meetings, I want to say, were aligned to what we call the guiding principles for dual language education. And these guiding principles, there's a total of 7, is a broad range of principles that are put together by experts in the field to reflect new knowledge and practices and policies in the arena of dual language education. And so these are created to guide educators, researchers, policymakers, and teachers who are wanting to implement an effective dual language program. So after each meeting, the information was reported again to administrative council. So it was kind of a cyclical process where we had continuous feedback. And a final report, which is presented today, was what was put together based on what, and that's what Mr. Toscano based his presentation on a little while ago. And so the proposal is that the East Central School Board will then decide if this will be approved for opening of the 2 dual language academies in the year of 1920. So what are some of the next steps that we're going to be working on? So the things that we would do next is we will continue to hold dual language, we will be holding dual language parent information sessions at each campus. And so those are already scheduled, and this will give parents the opportunity to ask questions or share, you know, any type of concern they may have. The dual language, again, will reconvene, and the dual language task force, and we'll have more additional feedback to continue to move forward with this planning in the spring. And then we will also make decisions for professional development to include training and preparation for the dual language campus leadership, the district leadership, and then the dual language teachers and support. And then the district will also finalize dual language teacher campus assignments before the end of the year. We will continue to work on secondary dual language programming and planning. We'll look at the redistribution of curricular materials to the 2 dual language campuses from all the other campuses. We'll also look and finalize the transportation plan, which will offer door-to-door service, along with the option of continue to have parent drop-off and pickup. And then the Dual Language Academy Parent Community Development Plan will also be something that we will continue to work with, so that we can revitalize our parent engagement and make sure that dual language dual language parent community is involved as much as possible. And then we'll have that opportunity for any questions that you know, any parents or community members may have.
Let me ask you a question now. You're forcing the parents to make a decision to either leave their kids at their school or go to the dual language program at those 2 academies. Now, the parents, what happens if they start pulling their kids out of the dual language program?
So,
Yes.
do you have an answer to that?
You
So
would-
one of the
okay.
things that we
Yeah.
always do, no matter even currently, is when a parent has a concern and wants to pull the student from a program, we always want to know why.
Right.
And make sure that we explain, because they always have genuine concerns, and a lot of times those concerns may have some information that may not necessarily be true. So for example, you know, my student is not doing well. We ask teachers to bring data. Or it may be that, maybe in this case, it may be the distance, or, you know, so I think we would take that on a case by case and find out what is it that they're concerned about at these meetings, because it may be that the reason that they want to not transfer the students to one of these 2 campuses may be something that could be resolved before they make that decision. But I think we would need to listen to the why.
Why is because they don't want them to leave that campus.
The home campus.
So we know the why.
Yes.
So that's what I'm asking you.
Yes, and so.
if we start getting parents that don't want to take their kids from these schools to go to one of those academies, the why is they want to stay where they are. So that's what I'm saying. How do you answer those? When they start pulling them out, how do we handle that?
Right, so I think we really need to look at, and I understand the point of them building that community there already and being a community school. But again, based on the constraints that we have and what we're able to do at this point, I may be answering this incorrectly, but we have, those are the options that we have at this moment in order for us to be able to keep the dual language program all together. So But I think we would be having those conversations with those parents as far as, it's a shift that we have to make at this point.
What do you mean by door-to-door service?
I'm sorry?
Clarify
door-to-door
door-to-door service.
So, my understanding from transportation is that there are, some students have to be shuttled from, dropped off like at a campus and then shuttled to the campus of their destination. In this case, they would be picked up at their pickup point and be taken straight to the campus, and then after school be picked up from that campus and be taken to their drop-off point.
Picked up from their home school to go to the academy, that's what you're speaking of?
No, my understanding is
So
from.
currently, we had Salado routes, so they
Right.
would go to 4th and 5th grade at Salado. Those routes would be resurrected. So students who would be attending Salado in the past are the same dual language students and non-dual language students who would be attending Salado. Those routes would be the same routes. So if we'd done nothing, the same bus that would have took them to Salado for 4th grade and 5th grade is the same bus that would have picked them up at the same bus stop. Same thing at Oak Crest. So
So what I'm asking you is, okay, the students that are in the dual language program at Sinclair, how do we get those kids over to?
yeah, so if they would have attended Salado, which currently they would have,
Right.
the bus that they would have rode when they got to 4th grade, it's the same bus.
Same bus, okay.
Yes, sir. And then just to expound, it's a good question about if they decide to opt out. So you have the non-dual language, the non-LEP student, like my son was, he would move into a non-dual language classroom. A LEP student, if you want to speak to that, who says, I don't want to move schools.
Right.
And
So-
I don't want to be in the dual
The
language
dual language
program.
program.
Anymore, right.
And in order for us to be in compliance and serve the students' linguistic needs, they can be served through our ESL program, which will be available at all campuses, including their home campus. So they would have that option.
Who is the admin council, and have they shared this information with the parents? Because my concern is we're doing this backwards. I'm afraid if we vote on this item tonight, and we have these information sessions, and we get parent feedback, which I've heard several parents tonight, that they have heard nothing of it. I just don't feel like I can vote on it tonight without informing the parents first and getting their feedback, because once we vote on this, it's set in stone, it's a done deal. What are we gonna do when we have more than the parents that signed up to speak tonight that have concerns? We're gonna lose those students? Are we willing to take that risk?
So my response to that is, if it's the will of the board at this point, that there's some concerns, I don't know what the protocol for that is, but if we feel that we're not ready to move forward, then that's a decision that would have to be made. I think that's what today is about, because I know it was shared, the information was shared back.
I have a couple of questions. What happens to the lower grade kids, like younger ages that are in dual language? Do we have them at that, first grade or second grade? And would they be having to make a choice to go to one of the two campuses?
They would be making it, if this were to happen tonight, they would be making a choice to move to Oak Crest or Salado sooner than they otherwise would have. They would have all been moving to Salado or Oak Crest in our previous arrangement in 4th grade. So they'd be going from 3rd to 4th grade. So if this was done tonight and you had a kid in 1st grade currently that was at Harmony, for example, in dual language, they would need to choose to go to Oak Crest sooner than 4th grade, because that's where the dual language program is. And just to restate, the goal has always been to expand our dual language program such that it was available in every school, just as we're doing pre-K. But we're competing with every single school district for a limited amount of specialized staff. And, this is not optimal. This is not preferable. In fact, for the last, 7 years, we've been going to Spain, we've been overhiring, we've been going to every job fair and recruiting, we've been doing everything we know how to ensure that we get quality staff in every one of these programs, and we've experienced a ton of staff turnover throughout the year. In some cases, children in a grade level experience 2, 3, and 4 teachers in a year, during the year. And then, again, the Spain teacher can only teach 3 years, and that's been at least half of the new staff that we've hired into the program year over year for that length of time, and we're only guaranteed to have 3 years if they stay the entire 3 years, which they're not obligated to do. So the circumstances, if we push this, which the board has the opportunity to do, it's one of your options, it's unsustainable unless there begins to be a huge surplus of bilingual educators in the state of Texas and in the San Antonio area. to match the demand, we cannot sustain this model. We can offer dual language sections in every school, but we can't guarantee that we'll be staffed with certified teachers. This year, you guys approved 16 waivers, if you'll recall, 2 months ago, because we have to even offer ESL waivers as an option for staff to earn that credential with the waiver from TEA, and they're currently sitting in our classrooms uncertified on a waiver, which means they're definitely qualified, but that's the current state of our situation. I think all of our preference would be to offer dual language in every single community elementary school, as was always the vision, but the conditions have changed. So I think that it would be inevitable at some point.
Right, that was my second
Yeah.
question. What's the timeline? Like, we're under the gun here, you know?
Well,
for-
timelines wise for this year is pretty much upon us, because we would have to communicate with staff. We would have to, with community and parents, we would have to launch new routes and communicate that information prior to registration, and through registration have firm transportation routes. And we would have to transition staff who are impacted so we can be whole in those programs, and that takes time. In fact, it would take solidly from February to May if we started now to ensure that we got our staff placed where they need to be placed, pending depending on certification and their preference. And so I wish we weren't on a tight timeline, but I do want to, while the communication to the community tentatively could always be better, this is something that the Board of Trustees has been talking about for 2 years, because it's been a reality for the past 2 years. So it's not going to go away. So it's not if we do it tonight, it's when we'll need to do it. And keep in mind, additionally, that move into pre-K 5 arrangements necessitates doing something different with one of the schools on the west side of the district, because Sinclair, Pecan Valley, Salado, and Highland Forest are in such close proximity that you can't distribute a balanced enrollment to all of those schools unless you do something different with one of those schools. So in part, the Dual Language Academy at Salado, along with one additional recommendation we'll make tonight, is an effort to solve that problem and ensure that we do have balanced enrollment in every school. So it's complicated,
Yeah.
which is why you guys were working on it in some cases since 2016.
I just feel in agreement with Ms. Barrientos a little bit about this. You know, I just wish parents would have been able to have this kind of opportunity to have all these meetings prior to this. And if we've been working on it for 2 years, I wish we could have been able to offer
Yeah.
them this chance to.
So I believe that without a plan in place, you can't have informational meetings for parents. You have to know what the answers to the questions are when those questions are asked, and it's unfortunate. What I see in front of us is that if we continue in our current model, our dual language program will completely go away. It'll just disappear because we cannot manage it. We cannot keep it going in its current model. It's unfortunate. We can't staff it. We can't provide decent curriculum and learning tools to our teachers and development in its current environment. The biggest issue is the staffing piece of it. So we, as usual, are faced with a very tough choice. Do we let the program completely fail and disappear, or do we reconfigure it and let it be revitalized and move students to the places where they can best be served, and not have campuses that are strictly dual language, but continue to have campuses where we have dual language students and non-dual language students so that they can enrich each other's experiences. Some of the transportation issues, some of the questions about, how do I get my student there? What can we do about this and what can we do about that? We've always done a good job. Staff has always done an exceptional job in those conditions about working through issues. I heard this evening that, I want to walk my child to school. We may be able to, instead of door to door, take from a home campus to one of these other campuses, a bus route that does that. Instead of door to door, if parents still want to have that experience, walking their students to school, walking them back home in the afternoon. But at some point, I think we have to realize that if we want to continue to have a dual language program in this system, in this district, and have it be a quality program, it's going to have to change. It's harsh, but it's reality.
So what if we do vote on this item and we have too much parent pushback and we don't have enough students to form a dual academy, dual language academy?
I would,
I'm just playing the devil's
and
advocate.
I understand that. It's a good question. I don't know what the answer to that is. I would doubt that we would have the attendance disappear completely to where we wouldn't have a dual language program. I think if you'll remember historically in the district, we started off with one school as a dual language school. And the rest of the district, did not have that opportunity. Some of our students, when we first started this program, were not allowed to participate in a dual language program. This plan allows every student in the district to participate in a dual language program. What would you do if, for example, Mr. Toscano wouldn't be able to find a dual language teacher, period, for tradition? What would you say to those parents out there who wanted their kids in a dual language program, and you had to go to them and say, I'm sorry, we can't do it at your campus, and we don't have any place else to take them? This plan allows us to have that available to the whole district.
What's the difference between that and the offering of an ESL program if the parent opts out and decides, she said that we would have a ESL available at the campuses, so what's the difference?
So the difference is, the goal of bilingual dual language programming is to become bilingual and biliterate, where the students are gaining 2 languages. Our English learners benefit from keeping their native tongue and adding English, and our non-Spanish speakers also have the same of adding those 2 languages. And ESL, that one is strictly for English learners, and the ultimate goal there is for just to learn English at the cost of not developing their primary language. Yes. And I did want to say, because our teachers are very dedicated, and our curriculum has gotten very strong, and I thank the board for all of the resources that you have helped us get. And so I will say that I know some of the fear is the quality gonna go down? Is that social cultural perspective and experience gonna go away? And it's not, because our dual language teachers, I can tell you in talking to all my colleagues in other districts, it's tops. I mean, every program has to grow. And if we stay stagnant and do not open the doors to new opportunities, it will become stagnant. But all of these great teachers are moving to 2 new campuses. They're gonna be awesome. They're gonna continue to plan together. And so I, as the coordinator of this program, am not afraid that the quality of our program is, if not, it's gonna improve. We're gonna have that opportunity to revitalize our professional development, to work with leadership, and continue to grow our program. It will be into schools, but I am not fearful that the quality will be affected and that the kids will not be exposed to a diverse student population. It's hard. I understand it's hard to just want to move it to 2 campuses, but it's a shift that apparently needs to happen due to things that are beyond our control. So what can we control? We control by having some of the best teachers, some of the best curriculum, and the support of our board. So I did want to say that, because I don't want parents or people to feel like it's going to affect the quality.
Well, thank you for that.
Could I add a little something here to put everything in perspective? When I was in school, high school, once we came on campus, we were not allowed to speak Spanish. Think about it, folks. We're arguing right now about, or discussing, I don't want my child having to take a bus. I don't want my child having to do this, my child do that. I wasn't allowed to speak Spanish. Now we're teaching it. I find it very ironic when I see these little ones, pre-K, come up here and do the pledge in English and Spanish. I don't know it in Spanish. I haven't learned it. I'm not going to. It's just my own personal thing. But think about it. When I was in school, I wasn't allowed to. And now you're arguing about, I don't want my child to have to take a bus. he's given the opportunity, he or she are given the opportunity to learn this other language which was forbidden when I was young. So think about that. Go home and chew on that, folks. You have a great opportunity coming to you, to your children, and you're going to argue about a campus? I wasn't allowed. My friends used to say, what's the matter? Don't you like tortillas anymore? Meaning you don't want to speak Spanish. I said, guys, I will get in trouble. We know the policy. I will be sent to the office and I will be raked over the coals, but you don't know the trouble that I will get into when I get home. Because my mother would say, I am busting my tail to keep you in school so you can learn, and you're going to pull this kind of stunt? The rules are what they are. You follow them. So folks, put that in perspective. Take it home. Sleep on it. And then come back and tell me, I don't want my child at that school. You've given her an opportunity. This is my personal perspective.
Not done with you, so think about it when you go home. Any other questions?
We decided that we have to do exactly. We're not closing any doors in terms of still looking to provide encouragement for the next time. But we understand that we're charged to do is to continue something that we started a long time ago. We know the situation, we talked about the funding, and that we have some 1,200 plus in the program now, and we know at some point we want to grow and get moving. But in order to do that, we have to have different plans off. I get all of that. I guess here's my question. The lady said we have reevaluation process going on. We're looking to project for how many 20, 21, 21, 22, or whatever in the event that because here's my point. I believe that if we're having that situation, other places are having that situation as well. And so maybe there will be something coming down. So if we as a community for some reason to be looking forward and, to have to make a decision so that we can go forward and really encourage other people to go ahead and not just left out or not considered, but we have to do what we have to do in order to keep
Yeah, so just to restate, will there be a process in place to reevaluate annually and project the student participation in the program such that there would be a possibility that we would be able to recruit additional staff, we would be able to grow the program, we would be able to expand the program gradually back out into other campuses over time? Absolutely, that would be the preference. That's been the community's vision for the dual language program in 18 years. It can continue to be the vision. That's best case scenario. Yes.
That's encouraging me all. We encourage that we will do all that we can, and we will continue to encourage and continue to grow. We started it. We're pioneers and starting, so absolutely.
One other thing that people in the room can speak to is every single year we were charged with, based on participation, either eliminating the section or increasing the section at every grade level in every school. So the reality of it is this is an effort to ensure that we can continue to expand the program and not be limited by interest in the program in any particular school versus another. And so, we'll continue to recruit. We'll do a better job than we've been doing at getting into the community and educating families about the option. There was a comment made about that, and we discussed some missed opportunities to ensure the concentration of communication. When my child was early on in the program, there was a lot more parent interaction and a lot more parent involvement and information sharing. We got stretched a mile wide to an inch deep, and we need to refocus the program. It's one of our cornerstone programs in the community. It's one of the best programs that we have to offer. We want to make sure we continue to do that and grow it. And not lose the number of students that are in the program. And do that by ensuring quality and delivering on that experience. And so, again, very tough decision. It's not eliminating the child's opportunity for the language program.
I just think that, I don't want to keep keeping whatever, but I just feel like all night long I heard communication, and, I feel, I see these parents out here, and I feel their frustration, and if I failed somehow, or we failed somehow, we need to get busy, figure out what that is. I know we mail, I know we send, I know we do all that, but where are these people? I know we have robocall, but where are we, I just want them to know that we are prepared, even moving forward with this, that we are going to make sure that they are well communicated to, because I feel that's a huge frustration with the parents that are here tonight, and I know they talk to other parents, and I know we can't reach everybody, I know it's impossible, but I feel like we've got to be doing a better job, because I've heard that too much tonight and over the last meeting, the word communication from the school. That's my last thought.
President, trustees, I recommend board approval of transition to proposed pre-K-5 dual language academies in 2019-2020 school. The recommendation from the superintendent to approve the transition to proposed pre-K-5 dual language academies for the 2019-2020 school year. Chair, entertain a motion. I have a motion by Mr. Garza, is there a second? I have a second by Mr. Brazil. All in favor? All opposed? Opposed. There are 4 ayes, we have 3 opposed. Is that correct? Opposed? 3 opposed. 4 ayes, the motion carries. Thank you. Item D, Central Leadership Academy. Trustees, it's a lotto. This arrangement allows for, as I mentioned earlier, some additional space for student enrollment. The district has long had an interest in looking at innovative ways to provide educational experiences for kids. If you'll recall, a little more than a decade ago, the high school was reorganized into small learning communities. And those were very specialized programs of studies within which we could offer a wide range of choices within our school district for families to select which program of study or which kind of experience best fit their needs and their preferences. And so we don't do that anymore, but what it allows for is for a district to be able to try some things with some kids to see what that educational impact is, and as a result, begin to scale some things that might be most impactful. And so we know that choice is something that's very big in the San Antonio community and in public education today, and we think that it's wise as a school district to provide choice within the district. And so this is an opportunity, it's a lotto, to add, in addition to the dual language program, another program that is non-dual language that is an innovative program of study. It's proposed to be called the Central Leadership Academy. It will be open to students anywhere in the district in kindergarten through 5th grade. And the focus would be on a project-based, application-based, a good blend of technology and traditional instruction, as well as early career and college explorations that would be cornerstones of the program. We have school-wide college and career readiness programming in our district through the AVID program, as well as Gear Up, and before that at the high school, the early college high school program. So we've got models in the system to build programming around kids and families to provide the support they need to excel academically through our system and beyond. And we think that this is an opportunity for the first time to push that down into the elementary levels in our system. And so at this time, I'd like for Ms. Hertz to speak a little more about the Leadership Academy and present some of the recommendations that the task force is going to present to the board for your consideration this evening.
Okay, so we are proposing that it would be called the East Central Leadership Academy. The reason we chose it to be East Central Leadership Academy and to Salado Leadership Academy is because we are hoping to pull in students from all over the district, representative of all the elementary campuses in the district. As Mr. Toscano mentioned, we want it to be a unique learning experience for the students. We're looking at a project-based learning model, incorporating technology into the classroom, blended classroom model. More service learning, we do have that at all of our elementary schools, but focus on service learning, career exploration, and leadership development. And we want to really focus on the students growing into global leaders of tomorrow. What the goal is that we would provide more enriched experiences for the students to help them be prepared when they go into the middle schools, to have the skills and the confidence to choose to do some of the advanced coursework and those type of opportunities. So the question is, how would this be unique? So we want to use some innovative instructional models, like I just discussed, have a mentorship program, AVID school-wide, have post-secondary exploration opportunities, quests that would be connected to the content that they're learning and connecting that to the real world, service learning. There was a discussion about whether or not uniforms would be required. What we're proposing is that not be the case, but that if they have academy events, they might have matching shirts that they wear. So it wouldn't be an everyday thing, but if they're doing events together, going to other places, that they would have, not necessarily uniform, but matching shirts. Talk about having club time where it would be teacher and student interest driven. And we also want to make sure that the teachers have some specialized training. We want all the teachers to have the 30 hours of GT training. We're planning on them having specific training on how to use project-based learning, how to implement it in the classroom. We're looking at some potential leadership programs and curriculums that could be used with all the students, and also focusing on character development. So all of the teachers that would be selected to be part of this academy, and there would be an application process for the teachers, they would be committing to this additional training to prepare them for the type of program that we are hoping to have at this Leadership Academy. This is the presentation that we would be showing the parents. So we do have like a little video there describing project-based learning. So we would show that. It's so long, so let's look at that. Now the application process. What we're looking at is kinder through 5th grade would be eligible to apply. We would want students and parents to attend the informational session so they would know about the program and the process and how to apply. We plan on an information session being at each elementary campus in January. Within your packet, there is a list of all those dates. We want the parents and students to sign in so we would know who participated. We're planning on having an online application. The deadline would be April 1st, so the application would be available starting in January, and they would have all the way until April 1st to get the application in. So we're looking at a lottery process, but we are structuring it to where we're going to guarantee a certain amount of slots at every elementary because we want the Leadership Academy to be representative of the district. So what we're looking at is shooting for 240 students, which would be 40 students per grade level K-5, so a couple of sections for each grade level. So that would give us 6 guaranteed slots per campus per grade level, and then just some open slots. So if there are students that maybe are living in our district boundaries, but they're going to charter school, we could possibly get some of those students to come back to us because they would have this as an attractive option. It is possible, if we have a campus that might have not quite as many applications as another one and aren't using all their slots, some of those slots might go to another campus. But what we're trying to do is balance it out to where 6 per campus per grade level plus some just kind of open slots. And then we would notify them of their acceptance in the academy by the beginning of May, so they would know. Now, another thing we want to do is have a targeted population. So if you're familiar with what we did with early college high school several years ago and what we do with the added elective course now, what we want to focus on is more of the middle of the road student. Like I said before, we want to provide these students some enriched opportunities so that when they are moving into the secondary school, they're going to have the skills and the confidence to perhaps go into humanities or into our pre-biology track or any of our other advanced offerings at the secondary level. And so the bulk of the slots are going to go towards more middle of the road kind of students. So what we've done is we've come up with some eligibility criteria, and so we would want students to meet at least one of these criteria. So one of the pieces of criteria would be to be a first generation college student for their family. So if no one else in their family has ever attended college, that would be one way they could be eligible. We're also looking at students that might have like a B, C, or D average in school. On our screeners that we do, falling between the 10th and the 60th percentile, they could be identified at risk or low socioeconomic. So they would need to meet at least one of those. However, we're thinking if they meet more of those, then perhaps their name would go into the pot more and they would have more of an opportunity of being selected. Now, we don't want it to be though where we're eliminating a group of students. So that's why we want to leave at least 10% of the slots open for any student that does not meet the eligibility criteria. So, and then it talks a little bit there about the 6 slots per campus. We would include all special programs. It could be GT, English learners, dyslexia, 504, and special education. So being a member of a special program would not eliminate you from being eligible to be in this. So we're hoping by structuring it this way, the bulk of the students would be more middle of the road students. However, by leaving those 10% available. We would have more students in there that maybe don't meet that eligibility criteria. We're hoping by spreading the slots out across the campuses that we would get a very diverse population there at that campus. So that's our plan on how to recruit students and as far as the numbers and balancing that. So the timeline that we are looking at is hopefully you would approve this tonight. We have parent information nights scheduled in January at all of the elementary campuses. We are also scheduling some open houses at Salado in February. So parents can go to the information night at their home campus, and if they're interested in it, they could then also go to an open house at Salado and see the school where their child would be going if they are selected for the academy. We're going to have staff applications and transfer requests due by February 1st. So basically, the month of January is when we would be recruiting staff and giving them the opportunity to do their applications. We've been working on the staff application. We're wanting to make sure we have teachers that are willing to do the extra training, that are excited about doing some innovative things with the students, that maybe already have some experience doing some innovative things in the classroom. And so there will be that application process. Then our student applications, will begin taking those in January, and that will go all the way through April 1st. And we hope to have all the staff transfers completed, students notified of acceptance by May 1st. And then there will be extensive staff training in spring and summer. I'll be to answer any questions you might have. This is our best thoughts right now, but if you have some ideas you'd like to throw at us, that would be great. Like I said, this is the presentation we're planning on using. This is the draft of the presentation that we're planning on using at the parent information session.
Again, it's not only because of the proximity of the more elementary schools to that area.
Yeah, so when we move to the pre-K-5 configuration, and then when we move to the dual language 2 academies configuration, then we have room for almost 300 more students in this Salado building. So that's why we're looking at about 240 kids in this academy to offer something different for our families. Because we do know that these times, some parents are really looking for something different than the traditional public school education that we offer. And so that's why we want to try and build something that is innovative and attractive to parents that might be looking for something just a little bit different. And that's a good location for it. There's room in the building. I know it is, one of the west side of the district, but we hope to have people from all over the district.
So it's more of an open charter enrollment type of school within an existing campus than almost any other model. And it gives us the opportunity to have some innovative learning, as you said, some leadership, some project-based learning, some of those kind of things. I think one of the big drivers for this as well is the fact that currently Salado is 45th grade. So if you open it up to pre-K through 5 and make that the model, you got a lot of seats there because of all of the campuses that are in that location. So in an attempt to balance some of the attendance in the other schools, this gives us an opportunity to have some seats available at some of the other campuses that you wouldn't normally have, instead of having that full chunk of seats sitting there. Some of the stuff you talked about is really interesting stuff. Not something that we haven't spoken about before. Talking about pre-K through 5th grade reconfiguration, what are we going to do with all the money that's going to take that off?
I think it offers a nice option for parents. Still a public school, still our public school, but a little bit different in the program for your students.
That's the other thing, is it a cost associated to, or we just, we have a need for that school? I mean, is there a money for that, or is it, the cost, you know, the cost would be, we're doing or not, decide to purchase for it? I mean, we are looking at possibly some leadership curriculum, but it's not, I mean, it's still the same funding structure, it's still part of our program.
And teachers. You're still serving your existing student population, so it's not like you're bringing students from outside the district that you would normally charge tuition for.
Is there a transportation situation?
So at this point, we are not guaranteeing transportation. Parents will have to,
You say uniform, parent uniform, parents responsible to decide that.
so, we would not be requiring daily uniforms. No, not daily uniforms. All we had talked about was, you know, if the students are gonna go representing the school to do some service learning, we would like for them to, you know, have some school shirts. Not a daily uniform.
And you say you might be able to attract some kids from charter schools and live in the city also.
Yeah, so we have students, you know, that live in our district that are going over to some other charter schools, it'd be nice to get them back.
I think that would be.
Any other questions? Tell me a little bit about the plan for the parent section. We have multiple at each campus.
So, draft initially, put out, continue to get out the dates, get a handout, there's also have in your packet. So we're offering initially one at every single campus, and we'll be asking parents who are interested to at least attend one. So they'll be all throughout the month of January, from the 8th all the way to the 23rd. And we would have 2 open house days in Sonoma because there's a possibility some of the students who are interested do not currently attend Sonoma, so we want to be able to tour the facility, some location, and some of the staff, maybe there as well next year. So
The challenge is still going to be a broad communication plan that gets out to everybody. We've seen in the past when we talked about things and people who were there don't know anything about it.
So our plan is, the flyers with the dates, have gone out to principals, so, kids on the campus will get copies of it to take home before we leave for Christmas break. We're gonna put it on the website, we're gonna send it on social media, we're gonna put it in the beach jar. So, hopefully, we'll get the information out there for all the dates. And yes, there's one at each campus, but you know, if a parent can't go to the one on their home campus, they're certainly welcome to go to one of the other dates.
Yeah. Any other questions?
to clarify, we're going to put before this work, we're going to put these flyers to the backpacks of every child before they go home, in addition to social media sites. There's some strategies that these elementary level, the information on this pack of the backpack. Just yes, sir. We're working on banners and different things as well for our picking roundups and all that stuff. So we're going to have to do a really good job of setting up our own messaging with all the outlets available to us through the spring for all the things that we're anticipating for next year.
We have also talked about maybe sending out, postcards, you know, along with your last year, when we, accepted changing it to this boundaries, contacting that also.
Sounds good. Any other questions? I believe we're ready for
your recommendation, sir?
Trustees, I recommend board approval of the formation of the East Central Leadership Academy on the Salado campus as presented.
Have a recommendation from the superintendent to form the East Central Leadership Academy at Salado. Chair will entertain a motion. Have a motion by Ms. Brazil. We have a second by Mr. Garza. Any other comments? Not all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Any board member wish to have an item pulled from the consent agenda? If not, Chair will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented. Have a motion by Mr. Mastigale, is there a second? Second. Have a second by Mr. Mulkey. The consent agenda is approved via unanimous consent. Before we move to adjournment, anyone else have anything else?
Can I just say something? Over this past year, I have lost countless number of hours of sleep. I've shed a lot of tears. And I have done nothing but advocate for my community and my parents, and first and foremost, my students. So please know that this guardianship program has been very tiring on all of us. And we are trying to do the best for our students, first and foremost. And please know that I am always available to answer any questions. And do not take any of my comments on social media for or against the program, because I will continue to ask questions until I am comfortable enough to vote on this program. And you can ask Ashley and Mr. Toscano, because I've talked to Mr. Toscano more than I care to. Not that he's not a bad person. They have been wonderful in answering all of my concerns and my questions. So please do not construe my comments on my social media to say that I'm for or against the program. And lastly, I just hope you all have a wonderful Christmas holiday. Enjoy your time with your family. I've learned over the last few days that life is very short. And so just like your loved ones, but tell them you love them. Thank you.
I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Feliz Navidad, próspero año nuevo. Ya ni más. I'm allowed to do it now. Seriously, go home and give those loved ones a big hug. Enjoy the holidays and look out for the chunks of coal that you don't behave right. Okay?
I'd like to thank all of you for all the hard work you've done, and you all need a break. Also, I'd like to thank Mr. McKay for taking the time out to show me around the Gary Pastor church. Well, and I really appreciate it. He also took me to his math department and showed me all the good things that they're doing at the high school. And I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. If you have loved ones that are driving late at night, I always tell them to drive in the right-hand lane. You need an oncoming driver. He'll show you the left lane. Everybody be safe from the outside.
And I just want to echo all of that. Plus, I wanted to say that even though we're voted in single member district, we're one district, we're one body. And the beauty of that is we have discussions and we talk and we listen to each other, and we all have the same goal and the same desire, and that is to do the very best that we can to represent you, the community, the students, and making the best decisions so this school district can continue to be the best school district in all of San Antonio, Texas, and the world. And I know we can do that. And it's been challenging, and sometimes you have to be pushed to really appreciate what you do have. And I know that we all respect each other and that we are a family. And so we're going to go into the next year with still probably some challenges, but we'll be doing it together. We will. And so I just want to say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I look forward to continuing in these processes to make this the best school district ever. I know you've listened to me enough tonight. I wanted to make a good impression on my first night back. But no, thank you all for welcoming me back. I missed everybody so much, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to serve this district along with you guys to echo what Dale said, and to make this the best district in San Antonio and the state of Texas. But happy holidays and happy safe travels if you're traveling out of town, and wishing you all the best business with your loved ones.
There's not a whole lot left to say other than Merry Christmas. I apologize for Mo being so cranky tonight, but I think she'll get something in her, y'all have safe travels. And y'all, be blessed.
Thank you all for all your hard work during the year.
Amen.
You've got some of the toughest jobs in the world, but they're also the most important jobs in the world. I can't tell you how much I appreciate each and every one of you, the respect that I have for each and every one of you. You've seen a lot of work that was presented here tonight. A lot of you did it. Most of you know what kind of work goes into those. And what kind of stress comes from those. So again, we appreciate all the work that you do. I certainly hope that everybody gets a chance to close the door on your office, on your school, over the holidays, and get away and enjoy your family and some time off. Rest, recuperate, hug everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Chair will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Come on, 35.